The Trump administration is sticking to its argument that the entire Affordable Care Act should be overturned. They actually had until midnight on June 25th to file a brief in the lawsuit to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, and they just got it in on time. Coming in at about 10 p.m., the brief was filed that says the entirety of the Affordable Care Act should be overturned, and that includes the protections for people with pre-existing conditions, premium subsidies in the marketplace, and Medicaid expansion. The brief, a long one at about 82 pages, made no mention of the COVID pandemic. And this comes at the same time as the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services report that almost 500,000 new individuals have turned to the Affordable Care Act during April and May amid the COVID pandemic and economic downturn to get health coverage for the first time. It's been an important stopgap measure during the time of national emergency, but it's coming at the same time that the administration wants to overturn the law itself. This was the lawsuit of Texas versus United States. It's now being called California versus Texas. It's because a lot of the lawsuits have been merged and joined with cases like U.S. House versus Texas. It is challenging the Affordable Care Act, largely the constitutionality of the individual mandate. The argument was, well, when the 2017 GOP tax law zeroed out the penalty for not having insurance, that took away the teeth of the individual mandate. And if there's no individual mandate, then the rest of the Affordable Care Act must fall as well. It's questioning Congress's taxing power if there's no tax and nothing to collect. And the Department of Justice brief argues that it's the entirety of the ACA that must fall if they get rid of the individual mandate. Now, constitutionality and severability, whether you can just take one piece of the Affordable Care Act out and keep the rest. These issues have been bouncing around in the lower courts for quite some time. The Supreme Court turned down the motions to actually fast track the petitions to hear this case earlier, which means that it will hear its appeal in its new term, which starts after October of 2020. So this issue is before the U.S. Supreme Court. The briefs are being turned in on their briefing schedule, the traditional one, not a fast track schedule, and the court will then hear this in its new term. A lot of people are saying that's likely going to come after the 2020 election. We share some of these updates with you. We will continue to keep you posted as this lawsuit is before the Supreme Court. In the description below, you can read that brief coming out of the Justice Department in the Trump administration. You can also read that CMS report that talks about the number of people that have turned to the Affordable Care Act during the COVID pandemic.